Look at this ridiculous display. She actually thought she belonged here among us.
If you can fit in that dress, I'll marry you. He shouted across the room, laughing loud enough for everyone to hear. His voice echoed through marble walls as guests smirked and whispered. The maid he mocked stood frozen, holding a tray against her chest. Her hands trembled, but her eyes stayed steady. She didn't cry. She didn't answer. She only whispered to herself, "One day." Those words will come back to you, no. One imagine how true that promise would become. The Almasry estate was known for its beauty and extravagance, long hallways dressed in gold, fountains lined with marble, and gardens shaped like artwork. Tonight, it hosted one of the most celebrated charity galas of the year. Wealthy entrepreneurs, international guests, and high-profile officials gathered under shimmering chandeliers, their conversations rising like polished music. Among them stood Samir Al-Masri, a young and charismatic millionaire known for his ambition. And for his careless humor, he enjoyed attention the way others enjoyed air. Every smile, every glance, every whisper fed his ego. He walked through the hall, greeting guests, tapping glasses, posing for photos. In his world, everything sparkled except the people who worked behind him. Amina, one of the house staff, quietly moved from table to table with the grace of someone who had learned to make herself invisible. But Samir noticed her not because of admiration, but because she appeared too serene, too composed for someone in a maid's uniform. Something about her quiet dignity irritated him, though he didn't understand why. She carried herself with a quiet confidence and intelligence, as if her uniform was only a temporary pause in her life, not her identity. Near the stage stood a jeweled designer gown displayed on a mannequin, a centerpiece meant for the charity auction. It shimmered under the lights, catching the room's attention like a diamond set on fire. Guests admired it from afar, taking photos and murmuring about the designer. A group of Samir's friends laughed and nudged him. "When are you finally going to get married? You're running out of excuses. Pick someone tonight." Samir, trying to entertain the circle, spotted Amina walking by with her tray. He smirked. He knew she heard the teasing, and then he said the words that would change everything. "If you can fit into that dress," Samir announced loudly, pointing at the expensive gown, "I'll marry you myself." His friends burst into laughter. Guests nearby turned and snickered. The sound bounced off the walls like cruel applause. Amina froze in place. She didn't drop the tray, didn't gasp, didn't show a single crack in her expression. She simply looked at the gown, then at Samir, then lowered her eyes. Her silence was not weakness. It was restraint. Samir laughed harder, pleased with himself. He expected her to blush or run away. Instead, she simply bowed her head respectfully and walked away with the same calm grace she walked in with, but inside something monumental shifted. That night, long after the laughter faded and guests left with glitter still clinging to their clothes, Amina stood alone in her small room. She held the edge of her bed, her knuckles tight, her breath shaking not from shame, but from determination. "You will not define me with your laughter," she whispered. "Your words will fuel me." She took out a small notebook filled with dreams. She rarely had time to chase business ideas, savings goals, courses she wanted to take. That night, she added a new page. "Become the woman I am meant to be." Amina worked double shifts and saved every coin. She took online classes during her breaks, studying business, reading leadership books, learning communication skills. She changed her eating habits, woke early to exercise, and built discipline like an artist builds a masterpiece. She grew not for beauty, but for strength, opportunity, and her future. Meanwhile, Samir continued living his usual life. But he noticed something strange. Amina wasn't appearing in the main halls as often. She moved with more purpose, more direction, like someone who knew exactly where she was headed on despite himself. Samir found his thoughts drifting to her more often. Months passed, and another gala arrived, the winter charity event. Snow dusted the estate gardens, giving the entrance a magical glow. Inside, guests buzzed with excitement. That same designer gown, now even more valuable, was placed on display again, waiting for a new owner. Samir mingled through the crowd, nodding, smiling, doing everything expected of a charming host. But his attention was caught by the sudden hush, spreading through the hall. Then he saw her. Amina stepped through the doors in a gown of her own, not flashy, not overly luxurious, but elegant enough to make the room turn silent. Her posture was regal, her eyes confident, her presence powerful. She had transformed not just in appearance, but in essence. She was no longer the quiet maid people overlooked. She was a woman reborn. Samir watched in awe, his mind struggling to connect this radiant woman to the girl he once mocked. He approached her slowly, almost cautiously. Amina. You look, he paused, realizing words failed him extraordinary. She smiled. Thank you, sir, he swallowed, feeling the weight of his past words pressing against his chest. About what I said months ago, I remember, she said quietly. I doubt I could forget. He exhaled shakily. I was arrogant and wrong. I shouldn't have humiliated me, she finished gently. His throat tightened. Yes. Amina looked at him not with anger, but with the calm of someone who had already healed. Your words didn't break me, she said. They woke me. That landed harder than any accusation. Then the announcer called out, We need a volunteer to model the charity gown before the bidding begins. Guests looked at one another. No one stepped forward until Amina did. She walked backstage, her steps steady, confident. Samir watched in breathless silence. When she returned wearing the designer dress, the same dress he once pointed at, mockingly, the room erupted into gasps. It fit her perfectly. Not because she lost weight, not because she forced herself into it, but because she had grown into the strongest version of herself. Samir felt something break and rebuild inside him all at once. She approached him, standing tall. Do you remember your challenge? She asked softly. He lowered his gaze, ashamed. Oh, I regret every part of it. Amina smiled gently, a smile filled with grace, not pride. I didn't fit the dress for you. I fit it for the woman I became. She touched the gown lightly. This dress did not give me value. I gave it value. Samir felt humbled in a way he had never experienced. Amina, I would be honored to know you beyond this place. Truly, she paused, then nodded politely. I appreciate your words, and I forgive you. But your apology is not the gift I came for. What did you come for? He asked. To show myself, she said, simply, and to give this dress a purpose. She returned it to the auction, raising money for women's education programs she herself had once dreamed of joining. As the room applauded her, Samir watched with a heart full of something new: respect, admiration, and humility. Amina had not just changed. She had risen in her rise, taught everyone, especially Samir, a truth he would carry forever. Never underestimate someone just because they're quiet. Quiet people often grow into storms.